So,
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. We are today, Hans Johansson is talking presently, and Kalle Lundahl sitting next to me, and Henrik Gustafsson over there in Stockholm.
and where are you?
And we are in, well, that's a good question. We are in Närke. It's
Sweden.
middle province, maybe. What could it be? 200 kilometers from Stockholm, something of that kind. And today we want to talk a little about the how can I say, the great thinker, one of the greatest thinkers of our time, I'd say, entrepreneur, inventor. At the onset, he was a neurologist, Malta-born British citizen, Edvard de Bono, who passed away this year on the 9th of June, sadly. And the reason he is so specifically interesting is that he has actually, from intuitive and neurological perspective, understood many of those obstacles that could be to the understanding of quantum physics. He very clearly puts that out in his I would say, magnum opus for us layman's, which is You Are Wrong, I'm Right, How to Break the Black and White Thinking, where he puts out his theory, what he understood. It started out with neurology, and he went on to help businesses with innovation. And he became the biggest expert of our time, I would say, when it comes to creative thinking, without a doubt. He has a competitor, he's called Tony Buzan. And I think Tony Buzan did actually at one instant admit that even the Bono was greater than him. Tony Buzan is the chap with Mind Map. He's also very good. I would just take up shortly a few subjects that's similar to the problems we encounter in quantum physics, and then we can sort of chat about those. And I would like to mention three different, and they are use of truth, overuse of opposition, and the third being before and after. And this is, I mentioned before, ex posteriori, ex anteriori. I would say the oppositions are the main theme of the book. There is where everything starts. And one can see opposition in different directions. But when I read the book, I got this picture of two Greek philosophers or sophists or whatever standing on the agora somewhere in Athens or somewhere else, and having a heated debate, and one won the discussion and he got the prize truth. And the other chap got the second best prize, and that was to be untrue, false. And one could say that this is how it started from the beginning. And Edvard de Bono means that we're suffering for this overuse of the word truth in an unreal way. Truth is useful, but in a very, very limited sense in reality. And more than that, the problem with oppositions. And he even goes to say in his introduction that oppositions are the thing that puts people into hatred, war, conflicts, but also makes us not understand reality, because it's a tool. Conflicts, oppositions, it's a tool, but it's not to be confounded by reality. And he usually puts up an example, that's the conflict in the Middle East, where Egypt and Israel were arguing what would they do with the peninsula of Sinai. It was taken by the Israelis, but it had belonged to Egypt since a very long time. And what could we do? And try different solutions. And the negotiator or the negotiators, they proposed different compromises between the position of Israel and the position of Egypt. And there we had the problem. And if they would have stuck with the compromises, there's no much doubt there would have been a war again against between Israel and Egypt. And at that time, it was a very sensitive time when it comes to international politics. The Cold War was at its height. It could have progressed to be something really nasty. But instead of a solution, instead of a compromise, instead of listening to the truths, because there were truths, indisputable truths. One indisputable truth was that Sinai existed and it was taken by Israel, and Egypt needed that. They all agreed on that. The agreement was on that. But the creativity doesn't accept truth. It doesn't start with the facts. It goes a bit further. And they made a creativity session, and they end up with thinking completely differently. They looked at, and they proposed this, could Israel actually have something else they wanted? And they formulated a need, and that need became defense mechanism, they called it. What sort of defense mechanism does Israel need? And does Egypt need a defense mechanism? And they said no. And then they went on to see, the only thing you need is a defense mechanism. And therefore, one could say, another way of looking at the whole picture is that could be an implicit, unknown, not fact reason that you won't leave Sinai. Nobody know about this. This is why you cannot check the facts. There's nothing you can look up in a history book. You can't see that Israel has a defense need at that point when it happens. We're still talking ex anteriori here, and this is really, really important. So they suggest this, and the creativity becomes the solution, disregarding the facts, disregarding the opposition, and it's completely new. But in hindsight, afterwards, it could be explained. And one could even say that Israel always acknowledged this implicit defense need. So what they did, they gave the whole peninsula of Sinai back to Egypt. They got the whole lot back. But it had to be demilitarized. They could not have any troops on it. So, and that's a solution that's not in the facts. Any research in the world wouldn't have come to that. And that's a very big part of the point here. So this, I covered three things here now: opposition and truth, and also before and after. After, it was really easy to put out and show the people this was the solution. But nota bene, the negotiators themselves from both countries, Israel and Egypt, they did not need any explanations. I think it was Moshe Dayan, he understood immediately without words. So he didn't need a logical explanation for why he should accept a demilitarized Sinai. And that, of course, was because Moshe Dayan been fighting, I don't know how many wars. This is the chap that didn't have one eye. So practicality is very important to understand these things. You need to practically practice the whole thing to understand it. But for the public, we need an explanation, and we got it. And it has been peace in Israel, between Israel and Egypt ever since, still to this day. So this is an example of lateral thinking. And it has similarities because quantum physics flies in the eyes of the idea that being truths, facts. We don't even have locality. We can have both particles and wave. So where is the truth about the world, somebody should ask. Is the world consisting of particles, or is it consisting of waves? Where is the truth? So, and also that thing, which is the most tricky one, he wrote himself much later to explain to anyone was what was ex posteriori and ex anteriori. But if you have a business and you are working, you understand it in your body practically. And that's, he was mostly working with companies, and he gathered together a fortune that was immensely. I think he's one of the richest men even on Malta, which is one of those places where a lot of rich people gathers along. He has his private university in Valletta. So it's a huge success with the practicalities. And I think the last thing I should mention is, getting a long introduction, is that he got never accepted from academia. He wrote a few articles and they attacked them with violence. It seems that academia is not interested in solution, they're more interested in establishing truths. But if you don't know the purpose of the truth, what's the use of the truth? And actually, you can add to that, the truth lacks its complete value if you don't have an objective. It becomes a meaningless truth, like existence we mentioned before, that existing in itself doesn't serve a purpose.
Yeah, and the truth is also the hallmark of a totalitarian state.
Yeah,
there you have the 1984 by Orwell.
Yeah.
And also Jehovah's Witnesses use
truth. Okay.
So when you visit a Jehovah's Witness, when a Jehovah's Witness meets another Jehovah's Witness, they don't ask, when did you become a Jehovah's Witness? They ask, when did you get the truth? So so the universities think like,
what is the truth?
Yes, they think like authoritarian states or totalitarian sects or whatever.
Without a doubt.
So the point is that where is the truth? If you want to, so to say, if we want to speak about the truth, is there any points? Yes, but we should always speak with the body, as you have said.
Yes, it should be direction, and truth gets its force there being a direction, and then you can talk about truth. But if you cut out the direction, you don't even have truth. You have sort of pointless dummy truth. It's a dummy. It's just instead of what you should have. Any thoughts, Henrik?
Yeah, I'm trying to connect what you're saying to a cat being either alive or dead. I mean, like the parrot in Monty Python. I mean, is it really dead? He's banging the parrot. Like in the, yeah, have you seen it? Monty Python and the parrot?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's brilliant.
So the cat there, when we open the box, is it really dead or really alive?
Very good.
Can we negotiate about it? Can we talk about it and use our creativity to make it come alive?
Yeah.
But I would propose like this. So is it relevant still to speak about truth? I would say that it's still relevant, but only after fact. After if you see the cat is, let's say, dead. Afterwards, we can speak.
Is it true or is it not true? Or what are we?
The cat is dead. But before the fact, there is really no truth. Or there are only possibilities.
Let me just go out on a big limb here. I'm just going to fantasize. It's going to be what it is. Well, imagine you're together with those Hopi Indians we mentioned before, and you are on the hunt. I got this idea what you mentioned now, Henry, with the Schrödinger's cat. And you're on a hunt, and well, let's skip the part that they are gathering information just being together, but let's say that they are in the camp. They've been looking for the hare or the deer for a while. Gather around and they exchange information about the thing. And some say I saw some tracks over there, and some other guy would say that I know that the deers hang around around the lake on the eastern corner. And the third person says it's now dusk. It's like 5 or 6 o'clock. That's when they usually are most active and most uncareful. They're more careful in the morning, because when the big hunters are going around in the early morning, they have to be very careful. And then you sitting there, you're a philosopher, and you look at the Indians and say, but hey guys, isn't the most important question, does the deer exist or not? This is not a good metaphor. It has its fault, but it's somewhere in that direction.
So what you're saying, that most of the scientists believes in existence, and what they're aiming for is a kind of worldview where things exist a priori, like.
Yeah, some of them, but there is actually a nice exchange. I remember now, I think I read it by Fire Event or something like that. And that was the Higgs boson again. And somebody asked, why you found a new existence? And some researchers said, I wouldn't say that. And the journalist got completely confused. Doesn't it exist? So what would we put 500 billion euros to then? Something like that.
Tax-paying, hard-work people.
To prove existence, yeah. Well, maybe some scientists are probably thinking in practical terms. What could we do with the Higgs boson? Or what can we do with the CERN reactor? Or, well, it's not a reactor, it's a diffractor. And what can we do with this new information? And of course, there is going to be some scientists who just want to improve science as a whole. Say we are improving science, and there will be those who say we've proven a new existence, and we're going to put that into the physics book somehow. And the Higgs boson will be there, and of course, Higgs is going to feel really, really proud. But poor old boson is going to feel depressed because he doesn't exist, I think. There's no chap named Boson, I think. I don't know if this is helpful. I can mention some other stuff from De Bono, but De Bono said that there is not such a thing as a true car. You need design instead. You need to design a car. You can't be working at designing department at Mercedes and say, oh, I came up with the true Mercedes. And I think this is a better point, that if you have a car that needs to be rearranged for the next year model, take away the untrue parts, take away the false parts of the car. I think that is much better. That's actually more to the point. The idea within academia, take away the false stuff and you end up with the true stuff, and then you have the good part. It's a little bit, if you have a piece of bread, you drop it on the ground, you get a lot of gravel, take out the gravel, and then you can eat the bread. That idea is completely ludicrous, De Bono said. You can't construct a better car by taking away false parts. And there's another problem. It's so easy to find parts that are false or bad, or you can criticize everything. And he thinks that we are giving too much power to our criticizing ability, like the Greeks did in the Agora on the square. They improve their verbal skills to argument more and more and more. And in the end, it became a self-purpose and defeated it, what it was supposed to do. It became a living entity arguing. And that I would say they're doing in academia today. They're arguing, and they're arguing things that don't have much value, like this dummy truth. And they try to finputsa, polish up the truth by taking away the bad stuff, which is actually happening in the media world today. Have you ever heard about fake news? I think that's an attempt. Get away with fake news, and we'll be standing with the truths. And the Bono, I can hear him for the grave say, and then what? But it has become a self-purpose. Establish all the truths. What are we supposed to do with those truths? Gazillions of truths out there, and we can invent even another billion truths. What should we do with them? It's just confusing. It's actually too much truths out there. So they're destroying the action. Some things needs to be done. Too many.
And purpose and action is lacking completely here.
It's a bunch of truths.
That's the truth, or an object that is true, or something.
Yeah. And I'd say that could even be a misuse of the word true. It shouldn't be used that way. It should be used not in contact with argument. If you're true to yourself in that context, true should be. Is there some truth to what you believe in? Yes, you say, but you don't put up arguments. But truth as like the letter T in the column instead of F for false, it has its limits. So it's not something to be looked at by itself. I think that's an illusion. Maybe it's the same illusion that Wittgenstein named. We are caught by picture. We have an illusion that we can't get rid of, and we are hunting. Take the example with the Hopi Indians. You as a philosopher will be hunting something that doesn't exist. You prove the existence to the other Hopi Indians sitting around the fire, and you convince them to go out and hunt this existing thing. And you come back with no food. And then you starve and die. But academia doesn't have that problem because they're subsidized by the state. Something that the Bono often mentioned. This would not exist in the marketplace. The reason they have these steady truths is subsidized by the state and funding and stipends and all that. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist.
I think it's the incapacity in human mind or in the Western thinking that we can only accept two solutions.
Yeah.
So I think, okay, if we want absolutely keep these concepts, truth and falsehood, we should keep them and add both and truth and falsehood. So not to forget that third option.
Yeah, De Bono, it's when you say that, I remember now, he has to say something to that effect. I remember now, not in the book, you are right, I am right, you're wrong. He invents new words, and he takes up, for instance, in the Scottish law, the Scottish court, they have three verdicts. So they have guilty, not guilty, and something, and not guilty until, something like that. Something in between. So he was definitely open to construct words that help the purpose more, and the purpose could always be different. So I think, De Bono's objection was not get rid of truth, but he said that you need to have argument as well. But it was also from a practical purpose, because it slows down the process of producing manufacturing new great things, making inventions, being creative. It slows the whole thing down because facts are no good, but facts are the old thing. And you can't, should you open a shop on an enterprise? Should you be a new Steve Jobs and start a business selling computers? You can't imitate him and say, well, I went to the Steve Jobs school and he says that you should make Apple computers. And I'm doing that and still I have no profit. They are true according to the Steve Jobs Institute. There you go.
But at the moment we are talking and speculating around ex anteriori, right? There are like, these are, we cannot talk about existence ex anteriori or something. I mean, we have ex posteriori where we actually use our senses and our perception in action. We either see the cat alive or we see the cat dead. This is ex posteriori, right?
Yeah.
So
You can
far we're
also,
only talking and speculating about ex anteriori.
yeah. You can also construct an ex posteriori for the future, and you can say this thing could exist in the future, and that's also a sort of ex posteriori, which is very interesting because it doesn't really follow all the time the rules that we usually have for linear time, before and after. And I think that could be a good helping tool to understand what is ex posteriori, ex anteriori. That it doesn't necessarily have to follow what we mean by before and after. It's actually
ex posteriori doesn't mean we use our perceptions. When we use, for me, it was perceptions and observing or acting.
You always use your perception. Because the observation and perception is the same thing.
Yeah. You use your perception to sort of construct something in the future. That's part of perception as well. It's a real thing, so to speak. Real, I mean, perceived thing in the future, even if it's a hypothesized thing. It's part of experience in a way.
Yeah, but ex anteriori is like our baggage or what we have inherited from the Greeks and etc.
Ex anteriori could sort of be anything. It's a sort of potentiality for anything, and it has its effects, of course, but those effects, it's a little bit like the example with gravity. I think I took that example with gravity. And that's implicit, explicit, but it's so similar in that example. You can use that for ex anteriori, ex posteriori then, and you can say something is falling, and then you can say it's gravity, or you can say it wants to fall. All those are after it's fallen, but the falling in itself, it's something that just happens. It's just there. We can't explain it. It's just happening, but it seemed to be happening. In better words. Well, we all know what reality is. It's like few people who needs reality to be explained, but we shouldn't explain reality. That's one of those errors that I think Descartes committed. When you start to explain reality, you end up with a whole lot of problems then. But you can say it's what was before. It has properties of some sort, and I think this creativity that is in the superposition is what actually the Bono in some ways are pointing to, the utter creativity. He was incredibly creative, and he thought he could like make up a system to reach the superposition inside your head. And he often used jokes as an example. And just when you tell the story, there's a tale, and something ex posteriori is formed, and then it's broken all of a sudden. Then that's the point of the joke. And in that very instance, he says almost to the point, not using these words, but there is the point of zero. He calls that the 0 point. And what he means with the 0 point is where everything can come out of zero. So it's almost like the superposition.
All right, shall we wrap it up for today?
Yes.
Yeah, we can do.
Let's toast for everybody. Bono. If you happen to have a coffee cup, let's remember his great work.
Yes.
Well, yeah, cheers to Edvard de Bono. He was a great master, and we would try to honor his deed. It's quite extraordinary. So, well, we say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Henrik.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.